too clear because there was a lot of like contaminants in the glass. Nowadays, we can get the raw ingredients, which can provide us a pretty much optically clear glass. You're right. Glass is like brown and has some black spots in it, so that's like contaminated. Yeah, anytime. I would love to see you all some other time here at the Museum of Glass. We're always having a fun time here. And I see your members, so welcome back. Thank you so much for your support. Why do we have an oven? So the oven is necessary to heat the glass to that proper temperature. Do you have a question here? Do the ovens cool down at night? We're going to wait for that torch a little bit, but all right, so are the ovens turned off at night? The furnaces that we have, they will be on all year around, 365 days a year. So this piece of equipment that's right here, this one's been on for about 8 years, I believe, straight. The one on the left-hand side of the museum is brand new. That one will be on for about 10 years before we do any form of maintenance. So 10 years without a holiday break, weekends off, sick time, none of that. It will remain on all year around. The glory hole that we have throughout the studios, these are turned off at night. So at 5 o'clock when we're done today, we will shut them off. They take about 1 or 2 hours to come up to its 2,300 degree temperature. Did you have a question on this side? So what does our glass look like before it starts? Our glass comes in a paper bag. It just looks like a paper bag. Inside that paper bag, they have all the ingredients to the glass. Our glass is specially made for glass makers, so it's like a special formula, like the Krabby Patty formula. We don't know, we can probably assume, but hey, we don't know what's inside of it. Either way, it's amazing quality glass for glass makers. So I do just want to give a heads up what's going to be happening here. We have a plate, and on that plate is filled with these strands of glass. We see the colors right here, and it's just a mixture of clear glass and flat and colored glass. They're both flat, laid side to side. I'm going to squish that pattern together. Our visiting artist will roll on the surface to pick up all our little kings in one take. So throughout the demonstration, we will show you some of our artist artwork. On the left-hand side, Sarah, we can show you some artwork on our top screen here shortly. I do just want to talk a little bit about what's going to happen, however. What we see on this left-hand side is just the tip of the iceberg. Sarah's just making herself a canvas that she can go back and create this photorealistic engraving in the glass. So Sarah has two different colors to layer and create something like this. So Sarah still has a lot more work ahead of her. We are just creating the canvas here today. We will also show you some of her finished artwork on our top screen throughout the demonstration. As we begin, Sarah, on this left-hand side last year, was invited to the glass art. I'm sorry, take a step back. So to Venice, Italy, as a gas conference. This is an international show or gathering for glass artists across the whole world. Now, Sarah was chosen as one of the artists to give a demonstration. We're seeing her artwork, her photorealistic artwork on that top balcony or top screen. And I have to say that her artwork in person is just incredible because pictures do not give it justice, just the amount of detail there is in this artwork, and it's all engraved using small engraving wheels, and it takes a lot of time and patience to produce this artwork, but this is similar to what will happen to what's being made on the left-hand side of the studio. So you guys just made an incredible observation of the glass. Yeah, so it does turn red and orange, right? We're seeing that when Sarah exits that chamber, that it's that bright red and orange. That is just the heat distorting the color. Sarah is working with dark colored glass and white. It doesn't look black, right? Yeah, it's because it's really, really hot. If we have your lunch, we could easily cook it on top of that glass. It would be... Yeah, your lunch would burn, though, so I don't want to burn your lunch, okay? So maybe some other time. You don't even have your lunch? It's okay. Why did she put the white tile on top? So this is to create different layers that she can exploit later on in the process. By grinding away the top white, she can expose the bottom black. Hey, that's a great question. That's a great response, right? We use fire to form the glass. So why does Sarah want the top to be smooth? This makes our palette or our canvas symmetrical and easier to work with. All right, so on the left-hand side, it seems that Sarah is almost complete with her canvas. Again, she will go back and engrave on that white tile later on to create different patterns. While in the center, we are now getting ready to transfer our piece onto a different rod so we can begin to work on the opposite end. The last and final step we take in our glass is to set it inside of the annealer. This is essentially the tempering process that occurs. We will be using the annealer on your left with the green number 1. It is currently sitting at 890 degrees and will be the home of everything produced here today. When we open the doors, it's gonna get a little hot up there. It's totally fine if you wanna stay there. Just a little bit of hot air will rise. With that said, our piece will cool down for about 12 and a half hours. So it will cool down for 12 and a half hours to eliminate the stress in the glass that can cause it to break, crack, or explode. So if it's left out in the open, it will break, guaranteed. But to prevent it, we will cool it down. With a little bit of water on the end of the punty, it will create a weak spot with a slight tap. Both on the center and the left-hand side, we're seeing this watering application with the break off. And this piece is complete. Can we give a round of applause to our visiting artist, or our artist on our left-hand side, Sarah Gilbert? Again, we are just creating a canvas that we can use later on in the project. Well, now that we've finished our very first canvas on that left-hand side, we will be continuing the demonstration. Again, if you're wondering what that process will look like when it's completed, we have some examples that our artist Sarah has brought in to show what can be done with that white tile that's placed on that surface. As we begin another one on that left-hand side, we'll introduce you to our artist in the center, Manuel Castro. Now, he's been working with glass since 1997, so about 22 years of professional glass making. Now, on our piece that we have here, we've assembled it differently. We are seeing that beginning process on this plate of glass. So if you're wondering how those lines were applied to the surface, we can see that down here. There are strips of glass that are then heated up to stick to one another. That glass can then, when applied, can be twisted to make a more decorative pattern, but it's ultimately up to our artists to decide how that pattern will look. If you got here later in the process, we will also show you the coloring application on the start of the left-hand side. We have two artists here taking over the Museum of Glass on this lovely Monday morning. So we have two different projects going throughout the day. So with our project here, we're working with dark color, so either black or gray color. Now, although we know the color, it's just gonna look red and orange, it's due to the intense heat. The way that color is made is different metals from the periodic table are applied to clear glass, which produce a different color. I am aware that to create black glass, we just add a bunch of manganese. By adding a little bit of manganese, we can produce purple glass. But we are gonna be seeing the coloring application here on this left-hand side. All the color that we're using is always applied separately. We are only melting clear glass here at the Museum of Glass. And we will also show you our furnace and demonstrate where the glass is being produced and pulled from. On our top screen, we're seeing a diagram of that furnace. Now we have two of those pieces of equipment, both at 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit, and they will remain on all year round. We're seeing our artist on the left-hand side, our featured artist, Sarah, stepping in front of the furnace and gathering her first layer of clear glass. Sarah will shape this massive glass into a bubble. After that's complete, we can then apply the color on top of that given bubble. All we will do is create a thin layer of color sandwiched between clear masses of glass due to the property of magnification that glass holds. Hello, welcome to the Museum of Glass. Well, it's due to that property of magnification that glass holds. We'll magnify that underlying color and make it look solid. Although our glass pieces may look solid color, they're not. It's a little bit of color that we use. And we can see that on our examples on our right-hand side, on our pedestal. This glass, this purple glass that we have here, is sandwiched between a lot of clear. So what we have here is this neat trick that glass plays on us. It's common that maybe the glass in your home that's colored, it's probably playing the same cover overlay trick on us, this optical illusion that it holds. For those of you who are joining us now, my name is David. I'm the MC here today. If you have any questions about what you're seeing, I am more than happy to answer any questions. We have two featured artists here today, both in the center, left-hand side. Two different projects going on throughout the day. We're gonna be here until 5 o'clock working on these projects. You can ask questions at any given time, but please sit back, relax, enjoy your Monday. We even have some stunning artwork on our top balcony, which I highly recommend. But that beginning process, as we see on the left-hand side, the color is dropped on top of the bubble. Sarah, after that, will spread that color evenly around the bubble. If we wanted, we could repeat this coloring application to do or create a double overlay. Maybe one color on the inside and one color on the outside. Maybe how this color cup, how we see that process. Although it's a blue on the inside, we can throw a black right on the outside. This is a process that can be done here in the studio. So our cup that we worked in the center has now entered the garage. The garage is a temporary place where we can store glass, hence that name of the garage, because we can park the glass. But it's about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's gonna stay warm till we are ready to use it later on. At this time, I do just want to introduce the glass makers that you're seeing working today at the Museum of Glass. We'll begin on the left-hand side with Sarah. Sarah has been working with glass for over 18 years, about 19 years. She began to work with glass in the year 2000. She has a BFA from Rochester Institute of Technology. That's where she got her degree in glass and sculpture. Now she resides here in our area, and she's a full-time employee of the Museum of Glass. So you can see her throughout the year working with our various artisans. We have helping and assisting Sarah. We have Courtney Branham. Courtney is also part of the Museum of Glass Hot Shop crew. He's been working with glass for over 25 years. In the center of the studio, we have our visiting artist, Manuel Castro, working in the center. Now, he began to work with glass in 1997, so about 22 years of professional glass blowing. And then assisting Manny is we have one of my favorite students, Julian Goza, down here. Now, Julian attends Wilson High School. He's part of their glass blowing program. So here in Tacoma, we have a very special glass blowing program. It's one of the only ones in the country that teaches glass blowing to both middle school and high schoolers. They have a glass blowing program, or their main one, at Jason Lee Middle School. And they also have a secondary studio at Wilson High School where Julian attends and is part of that program. So Julian's spending his day today here, not at home, working down here in the studio. And as a glass maker, to become better, you just have to dedicate the time in the studio. Just like playing an instrument, it ultimately depends on you, how much time you put into the craft. Well, this process begins with a Pastorelli plate. On this plate, we have these broken flat pieces of glass. We're going to create a pattern, as will be our starting point. What will happen is we're going to pick up this glass on the end of the rod to begin the demonstration in the center of the studio. Welcome to the museum, by the way. See your members, so welcome back to the studio. Thank you for your continuous support of the Museum of Glass. By the way, we love members here at the museum. Members help out the museum a lot, both through our Hot Shop Heroes program. This is where our studio becomes a studio for veterans from Joint Base Lewis McChord. So this studio becomes theirs twice a week. And then also our Kids Design Glass program that is also funded by our members. So thank you so much for your support. But with that said, again, let's jump back into this studio action. We have two furnaces at the Museum of Glass. They both hold 1,000 pounds of molten glass at about the same temperature as molten lava. When one of our glass makers decide that they've gathered too much glass, they can let go of excess glass in the clear bucket we have next to the furnace. And this is the only clear glass that we ever recycle at the museum, goes into this clear bin. Anything that ends up on the ground will just be thrown away. Unfortunately, it is contaminated with color or even dirt or debris from the hot shop ground. As we see on the left-hand side, Sarah's preparing for the next step, which is another layer of molten glass. Sarah's already applied the color. The next step is to add the necessary amount of mass of glass to move on to the actual shaping and expansion of the bubble. So this process of gathering will be repeated until we have enough glass. But Sarah lets the bubble cool down, and we do this so we're working smarter rather than harder. That cold core will allow us to gather more glass, but more importantly, just maintain control over the hot layer that's added. We use centrifugal force to counteract gravity, since gravity will always want to bring the glass to the ground. When you're first beginning to work with glass, turning the rod can be very difficult. After all, it does have to be second nature. So we are going to do the roll up on this right hand side, so we're going to make sure that we show you how this is applied on our top screen, and we'll get a very good picture of this action. But this is the time that we pick up this pattern. We have Julian heating up those canes of glass. We're ensuring that they're stuck to one another. If we get it too hot, they can stick on the plate, which is something that we want to prevent. A little squish ensures that they've stuck to one another. After all, we only have one try to roll on the surface. And look at that, go. And just like that, the lines have been added to the glass. When you're going through the gallery and store, notice if glass has straight lines, regardless if they're vertical or horizontal, this is how the lines are applied. Our next step is to ensure we have a clean seal, that the canes meet one another in a nice symmetrical fashion. When we're meeting the canes back with one another, we're ensuring that these canes don't overlap, which can result in an uneven line, the heat radiating from the glass itself. Again, it's exiting the glory hole. That's 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. We use newspapers as one of our shaping tools. When we blow air through the blowpipe, it takes the path of least resistance. So wherever it's hotter, the bubble will expand towards. So here, Sarah creates or cuts in a jack line. The jack line is what we use to separate the usable piece from the steel rod itself. And this move or technique always occurs early in the demonstration. Now, I know our bubble doesn't look like our finished piece yet, but we have already determined a zone that we can break it free from the rod. For our audience joining us, welcome to the Museum of Glass. My name is David. If you have any questions about what you're seeing here today, I am more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. So Sarah is working on a series of engraved photo booths. We're seeing some of these examples right here on this pedestal. Right now we're going to be adding a sheet of white glass to our cylinder. What this will do is we're going to create Sarah a canvas that she can use later on to create different patterns and illustrations on the surface. So what will happen is we have a piece of white glass inside of the garage. It looks like our artist Courtney Branham has exited the garage with that white tile of glass. Again, this is just going to give Sarah another color layer that she can work with. She can then use different engraving wheels to cut into the glass and remove the white glass to expose the bottom layer of black glass, therefore creating this photorealistic image on the glass. And I want to show you some of Sarah's artwork on our top screen so we can begin to see where these ideas are coming from and also some of Sarah's own work. So on our top screen here, let's show you some images of Sarah's work. Pictures do not capture Sarah's artwork's true beauty, by the way. It's all completely made out of glass and it's photorealistic. For that reason, no pictures can really capture its beauty. I highly recommend it that you see it in person. In our artist, Sarah, this year she has been invited to teach a class at the world-renowned Pilchuck Glass School. So later this summer, Sarah will be teaching her class. This technique that we're seeing here on the top, this engraving technique, and these hands that we have here that show these different illustrations, again, pictures do not capture that beauty because it is completely made out of glass. And that process will also be happening with the sculptures that we make here today. A photorealistic image will be engraved onto that surface. So although we will be done with our project within an hour, Sarah still has countless hours to work on the glass after this piece is cooled down. And that's really where the fun begins. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg here at the Museum of Glass. While in the center of the bench, we're going to be doing something also similar. Our visiting artist is going to be making a lot of prep work that will be used for a different demonstration later on. So we noticed that glass making is all about teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work here at the studio. Julian is standing by to blow air through the blowpipe. We're blowing about the same air pressure you use to blow out a candle. Anytime we touch the surface of the glass, the tools that we use, we slide some beeswax on the blades. That's to prevent any scratching that may occur on that surface. As Sarah creates a flat bottom on the piece on that left-hand side, here in the center, what will occur is we have a cup sitting inside of the garage. That cup eventually will be broken free and set inside of that ring. What will happen is we're gonna stuff this massive glass inside of a cup. By doing so, we can create essentially a pattern similar to this with the color on the outside, color on the inside, but the one on the inside will have that white stripes. So it won't be solid, there'll be some stripes on the inside. Looks like our lines are gonna be crossing one another to create this pattern. Again, our inspiration for our project that we are working on is wicker baskets, or our inspiration comes from that. What we are doing is just experimenting. And that application is completed. Again, we're doing a lot of experimenting here in the studio, in the center. Our artist, Manuel Castro, working with glass for 22 years, began at Pratt Fine Art Center. His artwork has been exhibited in numerous places across the United States. This includes Seattle, Portland, Chicago, and San Francisco, where his artwork has been exhibited. And that's just to name a few also. Manny does currently work in Seattle with a renowned glassmaker and has been part of teams for other glassmakers across the U.S. Here today, we have a special day. We have 2 visiting artists taking over the museum, but we have a visiting artist program that will return this week. Beginning on Wednesday, we will be hosting visiting artists Dante Marioni and also John Kiley. They will begin their residency on Wednesday, and that will continue until Sunday. The way that the Museum of Glass operates is we're essentially a Disneyland for artisans across the world. To come to this museum, we have an excellent team that can make anything your heart desires. Our artisans just need to come with the ideas they wish to pursue using the medium of glass. Some of the artists that we've had at the museum have never worked with glass before. Some of them are professionals, but ultimately it's a little bit about the idea that they pursue. Well, I do want to explain what Sarah's doing right now. She's using a tungsten drill bit. What Sarah is doing is she's creating a hole on the bottom. This is so when we transfer it onto a different rod, we can attach a blowpipe so we can continue to introduce more air into our bubble. Oh yes, so it often, I'm gonna wait for that torch to come off here. So it often gets really loud here in the studio, but my name is David. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. We have Sarah on the left-hand side. What she is doing is creating a vessel that she can then create these sort of prints on the surface of the glass. So she's just making a canvas that she can use later to create a photorealistic image on the glass. And it's incredible, her style of working with glass. Due to this style, she will be teaching a class this year at the world-renowned Pilcher Glass School, and then last year she was invited to fly out to Venice, Italy to give a demonstration again on her artwork. She began to work with glass in the year 2000. She's a graduate of the Rochester Institute of Technology, so she's been working with glass for about 19 years. And her images do not like show how intricate her artwork is. I'm gonna show you some images on our top screen now, some of Sarah Gilbert's artwork, because it is so incredible. It's so detail oriented, and the images do not give it justice, but we can see some images on our top screen of her artwork. Sarah does a very unique way of working with glass. So she uses engraving wheels, so diamond tipping wheels, so she can remove the surface of the glass to expose the bottom layer. And of course, by having different color layers, she can then produce a different image to tell a different story on each artwork. And then we're gonna move on to her hands, which are so unique. And again, these images do not capture its beauty. You really do need to see it in person. It's photorealistic, and it's all completely glass. It's all black glass and then white glass on the surface, and she can expose it. It's incredible. And that's what will occur with the pieces we have in the center. This is a different series that she's working on. So she's experimenting here in the studio. This is a new series of engraved photo booths. So that's where the inspiration is coming for these pieces. And then later on, we can show you the images that will be carved on the pieces of glass that we're making here today at the museum. On our center of the studio, we have another visiting artist, Manuel Castro, working in the center. Manuel is also experimenting using glass. Now, Manuel's inspiration is wicker baskets. Essentially, that material is what we're going to be replicating here at the museum. Now, this comes from both Manny's childhood and also inspiration. So this is what will happen here in the center. But again, this is just the beginning process of this artwork. A lot of experimentation will be occurring here in the studio. Manny will also be creating a lot of the prep work that's necessary to create this artwork. But we have two artists here at the museum, so we have a lot of things so we can explain what's going on. My name is David. I am more than happy to answer any questions. With that said, I want to introduce the furnace, where is all the glass that we're using here at the museum is produced. We have 1,000 pounds of molten glass in each furnace, about the same temperature as molten lava. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. So exciting. These are very talented artists that we have here in the studio, by the way. They're incredibly talented. On a regular day, you may just see one of them here as our featured artist here, but today's a special day, so we're giving you two visiting artists to start off our Monday. Now, similar to the furnace, we have a glory hole. It's what we use to make the glass more malleable. The key difference is there is no glass inside of here. It's just fire and heat that we use to continue to work on the glass. Our studio is powered by natural gas. That is our fuel source. And another key difference is that this chamber, the glory hole, is turned off at night. We often get asked, why do we name it the glory hole? I have no idea where that name comes from. I just know that that's where we call it. All right, so right now we're gonna do a very important step, which is creating a jack line. The jack line is the weak spot we use in the glass. This is how we will separate the usable glass from the rod itself, and it's with that small constriction or weak spot that we've just created in the glass. Although there's still a lot of shaping to be done, we've already thought ahead of the process and no longer need to worry about heating up this back end. I love questions, yes. Is there a place where we can see this finished piece? So, yes, there is, and the best way is just to follow the Museum of Glass towards social media. We post images and videos of the process of the work that's seen here at the museum. So if you want to see exactly what this piece will look like when completed, follow the Museum of Glass online. We do all forms of social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We even have a live stream, so everything viewed on the top screen can be viewed through the comfort of your own home, through our YouTube channel, or also our website. So check us out later today, and we can see the final piece also. So here at the Museum of Glass, I'm gonna wait for that torch to come off here. So at the Museum of Glass, we have a very talented AV crew. They're all on top of that clear window up there. We have an AV booth. Oh yes, we have a system very similar to what a newscasting system would use, so a full equipment. It's amazing. We just upgraded, so we live stream in HD also. And then we have HD cameras connected all around the museum. So our canvas is nearly complete. Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's still a lot more work to be done when this piece is cold, but this is just the beginning of a little bit of water, and it's time to break our canvas free from the rod. All right, can we give Sarah a round of applause? She did an amazing job again. This is just the start. I see a few members out in the audience. Thank you so much. We love members. Members help out the Museum of Glass so much. It sponsors our Kids Design Glass program, our Hot Shop Heroes. I mean, we love all our members, so thank you so much for your support. So the Museum of Glass is built in this iconic cone-shaped structure. If you haven't looked up, I recommend it. I mean, it's just so incredible. This shape comes to the museum by our architect, Arthur D. Erickson. He's a world-renowned Canadian architect. He also designed the city of Vancouver. But this museum was designed after the incinerators that used to stand in Tacoma. Tacoma used to be a logging center of the world. We had over 73 lumber mills, and that's where this shape comes to us from. So our furnace that we're using, that one on that left, it's brand new. It'll be the future of the Museum of Glass for about the next decade before we turn it off or do any form of maintenance to that furnace. Hello, welcome to the museum. Thanks for joining us. In the center, we have Manuel Castro as our featured artist. So we have our garage, the garage being a temporary place. We can store glass, prevent it from breaking. It's gonna stay in there for until we are ready to bring it out. What we will do is called an encamo. An encamo means you're bringing two different pieces of glass together. An encamo, as we see, can be this, that separate band of glass applied to clear. Also this glass right here. So this is an encamo, just means you're bringing two different pieces of glass together. We're gonna encamo another piece. So we have green glass. I'm gonna show you that glass because I think it's really unique. I think it's a really nice color. We have green glass on the outside with the white on the inside. We're gonna encamo that to our massive glass that we have. It's gonna look red and orange, but this will be the true color of that glass that we are working with. With our demonstration today, we are going to be working late into our lunch, so we have a lot of glass blowing to get to. On our left-hand side, we are just starting another project. The color has just been applied. We are working with dark hues on the left-hand side, both black and gray. In the center of our studio since 10 o'clock, our artist has been making a lot of prep work to the stage that we are at right now. We are mimicking dried banana leaves, so wicker. Now that is our inspiration for the project we have in the center, but we are experimenting with this. We see the actual glass blowing process occurring here in the center. As we blow through the blowpipe, it expands the bubble, and we control that given bubble. So we see one of our glass makers stepping in front of the furnace. We have 1,000 pounds of molten glass at the same temperature as molten lava. Now it's due to the viscosity of the glass that on contact, we can add an additional layer, and this process of gathering will be repeated until we have sufficient amount of glass. In the center of the studio, we are beginning an encamo process. Encamo meaning you're adding two different sections, colored glass, together to make one single piece. We see some examples of encamo on the right-hand side of the studio, and we're also showing you a diagram of what the encamo will look like when this process is done. So we're gonna be doing that here in the center as our visiting artist, Manuel Castro, takes over the studio in the center. And then on the left-hand side, we have Sarah Gilbert. We have two visiting artists for today, so two different projects going on. We can see that Sarah takes the precaution of removing any impure glass. It could be a piece of debris, maybe a melted glass, or even a ceramic chip. Whatever it is, we just get rid of it. Glass has a property of magnification, so even a small imperfection can look a lot more larger in the end result. For that reason, we just get rid of it entirely. So I am more than happy to talk about our artist right here. Let me go drop this off real quickly, and then we can begin to talk about Sarah, who's working on the left-hand side of the studio. Let me show you some of Sarah's artwork also on our top screen. So we're going to show you some of Sarah, and let's introduce Sarah. She's a full-time employee here at the Museum of Glass. She began to work with glass year 2000 and at Rochester Institute of Technology, where she holds a BFA from. We're seeing some of her artwork here on our top screen. Last year, Sarah was invited to visit Murano, Italy to give a demonstration on her artwork for an international gathering of glassmakers. It was held in Italy last year. This year, Sarah's also been invited to teach at the renowned Pilchuck Glass School, where she will be showing her technique of engraving into glass. What we're doing today is just creating a canvas for Sarah. She is beginning a new series of work. This new series of work is to create engraved photo booths. So what will happen is we will create a cylinder and add a white tile of glass on that surface. Using that white tile of glass, let me flip these over real quickly. We can see what will be created using that white tile of glass. So a pattern like this or an image can be made by engraving into the glass, removing the white layer to expose the bottom white layer. Different layers of glass can be used to create a different image. So that's what will happen with Sarah's artwork. Again, this is just a new beginning of this. This ultimately will be happening on a vessel. So what we're doing today is just creating a canvas for Sarah to use later on. So working on the center, we have Manuel Castro. Now, Manny began to work with glass in 1997 at Pratt Fine Arts Center. This is a glassblowing school in Seattle, where he began to work with glass. Later on, Manny has also worked with the maestro Lino Tagliopietra, and also works for Dale Chihuli's Boathouse. So he has developed the necessary hand skills as a glassmaker, and it just takes a long time. Manny's artwork has also been shown across the country, in California, and I actually have a list of different places that he's been shown. I'm more than happy, but he's been shown all across the United States. Right now, Manny's also experimenting with more artwork. This time, we're trying to mimic wicker baskets or that material itself. That's why we can see that weaved glass. That's what we're trying to mimic. We're doing a lot of prep work down here in the center. Besides experimenting, we will do a lot of prep work to create that wicker basket material. So the Museum of Glass every year hosts approximately 40 visiting artists throughout the year. Our artists that come to the museum, some of them have never worked with glass before, some of them are professionals. Either way, a residency, when an artist wins one, it can come up to with 5 days of professional glassmaking with our professional crew. So we have a team that can make anything your heart desires. All we ask is our artists to come with the ideas they wish to pursue. We recommend any artisans from any craft to apply for a residency here at the museum. And we host a bunch of them all throughout the year. We're like a Disneyland for artists. This is really a unique place in the globe to continue glassmaking. Like I say, we're not here to sell glass. We are here to push the limits of glass as an art form. Although if you want to support the museum, hey, we do have glass for sale. We have memberships that can help out the museum a lot. We also have donation boxes around the studio. But again, our visiting artist program is one of those programs that make this museum unique in the glass industry. So I had mentioned that Sarah on the left is producing this photorealistic glass. She's gonna be applying a white layer of glass to her core. So right now with the canvas, on the left-hand side we have Courtney Branham, and on that plate that he has like a tile of white glass that Sarah's gonna place on the surface. This is gonna give her that second layer she needs to produce that photorealistic glass engravings. So here in the center, our artist has joined two bubbles together to make one single piece. Before we continue in the process, we're going to condense the bubble down. This will allow us to have a symmetrical shape at the very end. To condense the bubble down, we're both using a wooden block. It looks like a ladle, and also the steel tables we have around the studio. So Manny down here is using both the torch, that propane torch, 2,500 degrees, and also compressed air to blow out the bubble in a certain area. We want to keep the bottom thick while the shoulder, the lip area, to be thin. For that reason, we're using a mixture of both tools. Well, on the left-hand side, we have transferred our piece onto a different rod, bringing over a punty. It's a new temporary rod that we've attached. We will also bring over a punty on the center. It's time to begin to work on the opposite end. One detail that occurred with our piece of glass here in the center is that we actually drilled a hole on the bottom. This way, we can introduce more air into the piece. Our featured artist in the center, Manuel Castro, has begun the new rod, the punty, the transfer rod, so we can begin to work on the opposite end. Again, we are producing a bowl in the center of the studio. Nice fancy one with this encamo technique. That's that transition part we see from the green to the white. Well, this new rod that's brought on over, to ensure that it's weak enough, we will also create another jack line. The jack line is just the weak spot that we can put in the glass to cause it to break free later on. So now that that breakoff point is made, this rod is strong enough to withstand any weight and pulling, but it's also weak enough to break later on in the process. And our artist goes through a centering procedure. This is done to ensure that the vessel or the bowl is turning on the same plane as the pole. All this means is that we will be left with a symmetrical shape and not a lopsided bowl. Sarah's piece is now complete. We will set it inside of the annealer, which is the oven on your left, the green number 1. It is sitting at 890 degrees and will be the home of everything produced here today. It'll eliminate the stress in the glass or temper the glass, preventing it from breaking or cracking. So with Sarah's pieces, we have some examples right here which what'll occur, but that white sheet of glass that's on the surface, using different engraving tools, Sarah can eliminate the white glass to show the bottom glass to create a photorealistic image on the cylinder. So this is what will happen later on with the glass. It's just the tip of an iceberg. There's still a lot more work to do on that piece. A lot of engraving will occur, and that takes many, many hours to produce engraving, to produce the pattern or the illustration that Sarah will have in the center or on that piece. And again, these are some good examples of that. And this is just a new series of work that Sarah's working on. Well, this time around, our featured artist, Manuel, is using a mixture of different tools, both the wet pad and newspaper, and also par trophies. This tool has wooden blades, which can minimize any scratching or residue that's left on the inside of the bowl. Well, we can see that Julian with the red cap, he's standing by. He has wooden paddles. The wooden paddles are used to create a flat bottom, as we see, but also to shield our artist from the radiating heat coming from the glass itself. Again, the glory hole being approximately 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. And again, our inspiration for our bowl in the center is a wicker basket. We have a green glass stripe on the top that is inspired by our visiting artist's trip around the globe, where in some places there is a band of green wicker used on the top of a basket. Now, the real color of that glass is the color that we see here all around the studio. So although it looks like a white glass, this is what it will look like when it's cooled down to room temperature. Due to the heat that's distorting the color of the glass, typically it turns out red and orange, but in some cases it can look sometimes white. And it's just the heat. As it cools down, you can then begin to see a taste of the color, but at this temperature, we won't really tell until later. The last and final stage we will take on our bull is to set it inside of the annealer. So the last and final stage is to set it inside of the annealer on our left-hand side. Green number 1, it is sitting at 890 degrees, and it will be the home of our pieces for the rest of the day. With a little bit of water on the end of the punty, will set it. Once broken free, for the next 12 and a half hours, it will remain inside of the annealer, eliminating all the stress in the glass. Let's give a round of applause to our featured artist here in the center, Manuel Castro. Thank you so much for stopping by. This concludes our morning live glass blowing demonstration. We will be resuming in approximately 1 hour to continue our demonstration. We are going to be taking our lunch break, but remember that your pass is good for the entirety of the day, so grab a lunch, grab a coffee of your own, and we're going to resume back in about an hour, a little bit more than that. Thank you all for supporting us and coming out here to the museum. We really appreciate you spending your Monday with us here. I am more than happy to answer any more questions that we may have around, but if not, have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
Charging the furnace is what we call filling the furnace up with glass. Glass cullet is washed clean and loaded into tubes for filling. Here at the museum, we don't use recycled bottles. Instead, we melt cullet that has been specifically designed to make blown glass art. The primary ingredient in glass is silica sand, or silicon dioxide. The other two main ingredients are soda, or sodium oxide, which lowers the melting temperature, and lime, or calcium oxide, the stabilizer. Once the cullet is loaded into the 2300-degree furnace, a rake is used to level the glass for even melting. The furnaces at the Museum of Glass hold approximately 1,000 pounds of clear molten glass and run continuously 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.